We're basically almost redlining per se. See, here we go. There's the red line. I gotta hit second.
Can't help it.
The first thing I do when I hop into an EV that has some sort of a sound design, I turn it off because it's really annoying. It really is annoying. It seemed like it was just a few months ago when we were in Korea and we test drove the brand new Ioniq 5N. Yes, that is the high performance version of our car, which is this right here. If you haven't watched that video, make sure to click on that link because this vehicle was so capable. We're on the track, we're on the road, 641 horsepower, yeah, but there's way more to it than that. Well, now we have the Ioniq 5N in our driveway and we have it beside our own vehicle. So today we're gonna find out what are the differences between the two and should we trade up from this to this? All right, side to side, they look kind of familiar. They are a member of the Ioniq 5 family. However, the 5N has some differences where it's actually 3 inches longer in length. It's 2 inches wider and ½ an inch shorter than the standard Ioniq 5. When you come to the front though, also some differences because this is a performance N version, it needs a lot more cooling. So I really do like the signature lighting that you get on the limited or the ultimate package that we have in Canada here. This kind of a brow that it has. On the N version, no lights on there. You have basically a grille integrated in for more intake as well. Underneath, you can see way more intake because this thing needs to cool. It needs to thermally manage those batteries. You do get the signature pixel style LEDs on both vehicles. We get to the wheels, 20 inch on the Ioniq 5, 21 inch on the Ioniq 5N. And if you look behind there, we have some end calipers. So we have 4-piston calipers on the Ioniq 5N. So it's mainly made for performance. Walking back here, now, they both have the retractable door handles that go in flush. However, it's hard to show this, but when I grab this, there is some texture now on the inside of the door handle, and I always found on the Ioniq 5 that it's kind of slippery when you grab it. Now they've actually taken care of that. Other than that, all the same there. You can see on the bodywork, this is wider. This has more of a flare to it, so it's an inch wider on either side, and you have some flow through for aerodynamics on the Ioniq 5N for sure. At the back, different roof spoiler. Also, it's extended on the bumper area. It's quite a bit, well, you know, it's a couple inches, seems like deeper. And also there's a wiper back here. That's a big difference. And you get a sport type of diffuser on the end. So let's have a look inside. The inside of the Ioniq 5N definitely feels familiar to us with our Ioniq 5. However, there are some notable changes. First off, it's the seats. You get these lightweight sport seats. They're not like racing buckets, but they are buckets. They hold you in really nice. They don't really have like hard edges, which I like. So they're not too extreme because most people are going to be using their Ioniq 5N for day-to-day driving. That's what we would be using it for. You only have manual adjustments though on these seats, which is kind of standard on performance vehicles. But one thing that I love is that they didn't eliminate the heating and ventilation for the front seats. Plus you do have a heated steering wheel. So that's a big, big bonus. I can live without the power functions for sure. Speaking of the steering wheel, this is a different steering wheel. It doesn't have a flat bottom like we actually have on our Ioniq 5. However, you have a smaller center yoke. You have multiple buttons. You have your drive mode, 2 N buttons, which we're going to talk about in a bit, and a NGB button. It's this bright red button. Basically, that's your like hyperspeed boost. Behind that, you have 12.3-inch screens ×2, but this is equipped with the new CCNC system that you see on the newer Hyundais that we saw in the new Kona, as well as the new Santa Fe. So this system, it's quicker. It has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This has all the features like our Ioniq 5 Limited or our Ultimate trim has. So we do have a head-up display, but backup camera. But one thing that's different are the different types of screens that you get on here, whether you go into your regular normal mode, we have Eco Sport, normal of course. You get into the N portion of it, you get a lot more information, including your temperatures for both drive motors as well as your battery. And on the right side, if we go into our N mode, we have a plethora of different options that we can do, and we'll talk about that more when we're driving. But yeah, you can do N pedal, drift optimizer. You can use this in drift mode. Basically, use these paddles like a clutch, and you can just like mash the throttle, just let go, and it just all of a sudden, boom, you know, it'll just kick that back end out for you. We tried that out in Korea. Still challenging to do with a vehicle that's almost 5,000 pounds for sure, especially when you get that much traction on here. But they've done a pretty good job of that. And then you even have lap timers on here. So yeah, this is the best of both worlds for the street or for the track. In the center, we don't have that sliding console that we have on our Ioniq 5, but I prefer this one. Even though I can't scoot over to the other side or for swapping drivers, you do have this little padded area for your knee. If you're doing some performance driving, you have something to rest on. But I think the ergonomics of where the wireless charging is, you use USB-Cs on here, and this trough area, not as big as ours, so it's a little bit harder for takeout food to go in here, but you can retract the cup holders on it. So I think they did a really good job on there. In the back, it's exactly the same. You can slide the seats forward and back. The difference is you have the USB-C outlets on here, and you still have the V2L vehicle to load underneath the seat there, so you can plug whatever you have up to 1900 watts in here. One omission that you don't get on this Ioniq 5N though is there is no big huge panel roof that we have on ours. That is not available in North America. However, European markets can order their Ioniq 5N with that panel roof. And I know for some that's a deal breaker. It's not for us at all. We a lot of times ours is closed. Anyways, without the actual panel roof, you actually get more headroom. So that's also a bonus. And I like how these N badges light up at nighttime. That's also a very nice touch on here. That's the interior. I think it's time to strap in and go for a drive. All right, now to the meat. What is this i5N like to drive? Well, if you're familiar with Hyundai's N cars, you'll know that it's not just all about just straight out speed or acceleration. You know, one of my favorite cars to drive is the Veloster N. They're all amazing because they are designed not only to take to the track once in a while if you want, but just to put a grin on your face. They're well balanced, they corner very well, and they just have a very good connection between you and the vehicle and the road for sure. It's so much fun. So the challenge though is there's a lot of emotion when you're driving an N car. You have a lot of fun, you hear things, you feel things, and that's can be challenging when you're talking EVs. You know, as much as I like EVs, you know what? Put me in a vehicle that's got a beautiful sounding V8, like an AMG V8 or a 5-liter Mustang, or even, you know, something like a nice tune of like an M car from BMW. You know what? I love it. And just the rawness, you feel the vibration. And when you miss out on that, they're all like little rockets. Of course, they all accelerate like crazy. It's hard to get that back. So Hyundai has worked very, very hard. And we actually had a chance to interview Albert Bierman himself, he's the godfather of N, or you may know him from BMW M cars as well. And you know how passionate he is about whatever product he is working on. He's not going to be satisfied until it's right to put his name behind it. If you want to watch more of it, I will leave a link in the video description so you can watch the whole thing. Okay, there's that acceleration I was talking about. Okay, 641 horsepower maximum with the N Grin boost button. So it's 601 horsepower normally. You hit that button, you get 10 seconds of 40 horsepower more, and it's like kind of like playing a video game. It's pretty incredible. I very rarely have actually touched that button. It's just not necessary with 600 ponies. You have 568 pound-feet of torque, and that torque comes on, like all EVs, like right away. This thing will make a run to 60 miles an hour in basically 3 seconds. It has launch control as well, and you know, that's in the territory of kind of like 911 GTS, or even if you're speaking with Porsche still, you know, the Taycan, which is an electric vehicle, you're gonna go into like the turbo, and that's like 2.7 seconds. So it is quicker, but it also runs you about $250,000. We're gonna talk about price on this in a second. So what have they done to this EV to give some of its lost soul back? Well, they've given you a whole bunch of buttons on the steering wheel, that's for sure. We talked about that NGB boost. We have a drive mode button. That's pretty common. You have your regular Eco, Normal, and Sport. Okay, no problem. We also have adaptive suspension. That you don't get on the regular Ioniq. And you get 2 N buttons here. So we press the 1 N button. Okay, now we can see our gauge has changed. Basically, we have a large speedometer, and we have motor temperatures and battery temperatures as well. Since this is designed to, if you want to take it to the track once in a while, whether you're drag racing or going on to the racetrack itself, you can set it in the infotainment system on your end screens to actually precondition your battery, whether it's to heat the battery up or to cool the battery down so you get maximum performance. For instance, if you're going to drive it on a circuit, it's going to detune that engine basically 10%, just so you'll have consistent lap times. You're always going to have that little extra reserve in there, and with that type of thermal management, it makes a huge difference in performance driving. Then this is the best part. So you hit that N button, we're going to get right now we're in full on. We have the traction control off, our stability controls and Sport, our motor, our steering, and our suspension are set to the max. But that might be a little bit too harsh, especially the suspension on the regular roads. So if I hit it again, we're going to go into custom 1. You can have different custom settings, which I love. So you have that, and this thing, it's like, okay, yeah, once again, EV, they're like a rocket, all right? But we're gonna hit this N button. Oh, what is that? Yes, there is sound. Now we can turn this sound on and off, and I know some of you are going to comment on here. You're going to say, oh, that's so gimmicky. You know, that's just like blah, whatever. And I gotta, just hear me out for a second. You really, really hear me out. I normally drive a lot of EVs and regular cars, but on the EVs nowadays, a lot of them are including sound, okay? The first thing I do when I hop into an EV that has some sort of a sound design, I turn it off because it's really annoying. It really is annoying. But what Hyundai has done with this is they've made it so convincing, because not only is it sound, you can select different sounds. You can, I don't want a sound of a spaceship though. This is a sound of like an i30N, like a gasoline turbocharged engine. But they have the sound, and they have 8 speakers inside, 2 speakers outside. You can turn those speakers off if you want, but I have them on right now because it's actually safer, because now people can hear you, and I can see this being a big bonus if you're on a racetrack, right? People can hear you coming, which is great. But you can also turn on your performance engine sounds as well. So listen here. You get those burps and gurgles. Listen to this. Now I'm barely pressing the throttle here. Okay, so we are basically emulating a dual clutch transmission right now. Let's see if I slow down hard. We have the gear down and we accelerate. Yeah, it adds so much emotion back into the drive. It really does. And now you can actually use the paddle shifters, for instance. So I can shift. Let's go to 6th gear right now. I'm going to floor it. It's not even taking off. It's not gearing down. It's holding you to that gear. Same thing if I go and I gear all the way down to even 1st gear. We're basically almost redlining per se. See, here we go. There's the red line. I gotta hit 2nd. This thing is, they've programmed it so well, and that, like, once again, when it hits that gear, it kicks you back so much, and when you're downshifting, you feel the compression right there. And you know what? It's kind of weird at first. It really is weird at first because you're like, it's messing with your mind. Like, am I driving a gas engine right now? But the neat thing is that, like, for instance, we're going up the hill and I'm in 2nd gear, okay? And let's just say I want to cruise around in 2nd gear like this. And normally on a gas engine, this would be using more fuel because I'm at a higher RPM instead of changing into 3rd. But here, it's just tricks. It's just tricking you because it is. Look at, there's a Ferrari there. I bet you I could beat that thing. I'm serious. It's like, anyways, it is tricking you. And you're not using any more electricity. It's crazy, right? But you know what? After a while, you completely forget about it, and you just think that it's natural. It just feels natural. Oh man, it is so fun. Is it fake sounding? You know what? If you're idling, you know, in your driveway and just revving it out, yes, there is some sort of artificial type of sound to it, but if you are driving it, it doesn't really feel that fake at all. But also, when you're using this E-Shift system, it's actually slower than if you actually have it turned off. So if I turn it off right now, okay, it's off. We're still in our N mode, and when I push that accelerator down, holy smokes, it is fast. Quick, I should say. It is so quick. But there's kind of no reference. So when you're on the road or on the racetrack especially, let's just say you have some reference points where you would normally gear down for a corner or how many gears you would do. It's very handy for that, but I just like it because I don't care if it's faster or slower, it feels fast. It is so good. I gotta say, you know what? You cannot knock it until you've actually sat in one of these N cars and went for a ride, or actually even better, get behind the wheel of one. It's not gonna replace the sound of a beautiful tuned V8, but it sure makes it a lot better. So a couple questions. First of all, what's it gonna cost you to get into one of these super hot 5Ns? Well, in Canada, just over 80,000 Canadian dollars. That's including destination. So that puts it about 19,000 and change more than the top of the line Ioniq 5 that we have. In the US, you're looking at 66,000 US dollars. Is it worth almost 20 grand more? Well, you think about this. A lot of performance versions of vehicles or models of vehicles are normally a 50 to 100 horsepower bump, and some little reinforcements here and usually some suspension tweaking. But when you get into this 5N, we are doubling the already potent 320 horsepower of our all-wheel drive Ioniq 5, you know, to 641 horsepower. You're doubling that. You're getting adaptive suspension. You're getting the bigger brakes. You're getting all of that, all the N goodness that this has, plus all the great looks. This thing gets a lot of comments. So many people have actually been stopping by to look at this car. So it really does look like something special. And I think if you are in the market and you want something that's performance oriented, you want something different, right? Not like the rest of everything else out there, and you want an EV, this will meet all of your criteria hands down, without a doubt, for sure. You know, so the question I have though is, do you think I can actually convince Cynthia to actually trade in our Ioniq 5 for this one? All right, we have the real boss in the driver's seat right now, and full disclosure, this is not Cynthia's first time driving it. She did have like 10 minutes behind the wheel when we're doing the rolling shots. However, I didn't have a camera in here to record her reaction of what it was like. And I have to be honest, okay, you guys have, you know, that follow this channel know, and you know, Cynthia's been on a lot of videos. Have you ever seen her this excited driving a car? Normally she just drives and yeah, it's got these features, but on this one here, you know, I had my headset in, we're talking from car to car, and all I hear is just giggling and say how fun it is. Got some fanboys behind us, by the way, driving a GTI. They're giving us the thumbs up, pulling up beside us. So this has been a very popular vehicle for people to ride in, and because I've given a lot of rides. And a lot of people aren't even aware of this car. So Cynthia, like before we get into like the performance part of it, when you're in normal mode, what did it feel like?
It has a little bit more feels on the steering wheel and also on the brakes.
Yeah, bigger brakes, and the steering is definitely heavier even in normal mode. But the nice thing, you can still drive it like a regular car. Yeah. That's what I love. It drives like our Ioniq, except with more power, but the power doesn't really come on. You don't really notice it until you really press the pedal. But then when we go into the N mode and have all those like this.
Sorry, need to pass the truck. I just want to do it.
Yes, that's where it just it just feels way more engaging, doesn't it? Like, absolutely. Compared to our Ioniq, I wish we actually had this feature.
As soon as you sit in here, almost step on that acceleration, it just instantly wakes you up, like instant.
Yeah.
Definitely the car I want to be on the driver's seat.
It's turned this EV into like a driver's car, which is amazing. You know, like I said in my in-car, it's brought back what's taken away from being an EV. So one quick story though, it's a little bit sad, but maybe it might have a happy ending. All right, so before, you know, it's like Cynthia was kind of nervous driving the car, you know, but we're just doing these rollers. Then we pulled into a spot and she's backed out of this parking spot, a spot that she's backed out of hundreds of times in our car.
Oh, okay. I can do it in my sleep.
And yeah, she can do it in her sleep. And the ironic thing is, like, I kept on telling her, you know, before she even drove this car, I'm like, oh, it's based off our car. It's the same car. It's just more power, blah, 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 blah. It's the same car, same car. Well, she was backing out and she just ever so slightly scraped the right side rim, on the front rim.
It hurt.
And it really, really hurt her. I was very, very sad for her. And I was just like, what? You know, and then I realized, I probably thinking like, well, I'm the one that told her that it was the same car, which it is. However, I didn't tell her, and I didn't realize until afterwards, I'm like putting two and two together, that this car is 2 inches wider than our Ioniq. So it does have those flares, and the wheels stick out more, which hence she just brushed that curb ever so slightly, but that's probably why. But you know, we always have this saying, you know, whenever I borrow something from someone, I always even tell them, they'll say, hey, guess what? You break it, you buy it. So you broke it, you buy it.
My plan worked, guys. It totally worked.
Okay, did you hear that? Did you hear that, everyone? Right here, she just said it. All right, so you have to stay tuned to see if she sticks to her word or not, if this thing becomes a permanent fixture in our driveway.
Yeah, do stay tuned for that.
like I said, you have to experience it before you say anything about this vehicle. There's so many people have written stories about it, and it's like they're not paid or anything. That's that different of a vehicle. There's nothing else like it. Until next time, I really hope that we see you on the next Everyday Review. What can they do, Cynthia?
Like and subscribe. Here we go, guys. Woohoo! Can't help it.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.